Good Thursday to you, and welcome to another edition of Red Meat. I'm Jim Garrity, along with my traditional co-host, Mark Hemingway, and our special guest, Mary Catherine Ham of the Weekly Standard, that other conservative magazine, but we like Mary Catherine anyway. A bunch of really fascinating topics to talk about, and Mary Catherine, glad you are here. Sarah Palin is in the news, and we're going to hear about her even more because we find recently that the RNC has spent $150,000 on wardrobe and hair and makeup and all the other accoutrements necessary to make her appear the way she appears. My sense is this is the very best $150,000 the RNC has spent this cycle. I don't think there's any House race where it's going to be any better. But there are those who disagree. So your take on that?
I think that although I understand the need for her to look nice and for her to be professional, and obviously that maybe she didn't have a closet worthy of the jumping around the entire nation on TV every day when she came on the campaign, it's a little excessive. It looks bad at a time when spending $150,000 doesn't sound that Joe the Plumber-ish to most of the folks out there who McCain is trying to make a pitch to. And I understand, like I said, the need to dress her, but she is an exceptional palette, if you will, and she would look good in many, many things, and I'm not sure it had to be Escada or Saks Fifth Avenue at every single turn, or maybe that much of it. So it's a liability, and I regret that, and I think that some donors are probably going to get upset about it.
Mark, liability, money well spent?
Well, I don't really know. I mean, I think what I would like to know is I would like to know how this stacks up compared to other politicians. I mean, when Obama's, average suit is, what, $1,500 a pop, and I imagine that they're not out dry cleaning shirts in the campaign trail so much as they are unwrapping the Burberry and, handing him a new shirt every morning. So I have a feeling that the cost of these sort of things add up for everybody involved. And, certainly, I think as we know, one of the great injustices in this world is it certainly costs more to clothe women than it does men. And so, that certainly has to add up. But what I think this is really about is I think that this is about the left sort of getting all worked up over the fact that for years they had to take it about John Edwards' $400 haircut and their latte sipping, limousine taking ways, that if they can find an example of elitism on the right or whatever, they're ready to pounce.
Mm-hmm.
Well, the problem with the media is that, yes, it will deprive us of any perspective as to how much this is. I think a colleague of mine was pointing out that Obama spent $140,000 on his stage / Barackopolis or something along those lines. Speaker Pelosi was wearing Armani every single day when she was named speaker. We saw several laudatory sort of stories about this and her wardrobe and how great it was. And, Sarah Palin did go from Wasilla and Juneau to every single city in the United States having to be on TV every day. And we're going to miss some perspective on that because the media won't give it.
Well, I just want to observe, my understanding is you could spend $150,000 and it still won't do any good for Joe Biden's hairline. So just to contrast that one. The other minor item of note, and we were just discussing this before we went on, it almost doesn't make much sense. Gallup polling today indicated that the number of first-time voters in this election is going to be the same as 2004. And in fact, the number of people who they contacted who said they do not intend to vote actually increased from 2% to 4%. Now, we've been hearing endless amounts about the Obama turnout machine and how they're going out and registered new voters. Early voting is up by a significant amount in a bunch of these states. I think it's about 25% of the people who turned out in Georgia in 2004 have turned out. Is Gallup on base here? They find something very counterintuitive? Are they smoking crack again? Is there, does this sound right, or is this possibly right, or are we way off base here?
Frankly, I'll believe it when I see it. I mean, I cannot remember a major election where somebody, especially a Democrat, was coming out and saying, well, the youth vote's really going to turn out this time, and they're really going to put us over the top. And, and sure enough, it never happens. In 2004, the youth vote did turn out in record numbers, but then again, so did everyone else, and the overall percentage stayed the same. And I think that we might see a very similar scenario here. I wouldn't count on first-time voters being the thing that puts you over the top. Certainly the Democrats might have an edge in their ground game and what they've been investing in that. And certainly they might have an edge in new voter registrations. But is it going to be because you look at a percentage of the vote and say, aha, first-time voters are what caused this? No, it is not.
Yeah. I think Obama certainly has greater potential to bring them out. I am slightly more easily convinced of the young voter story this time around than other times. But yeah, I'm like you. I'll believe it when I see it, because young voters, first-time voters, are the kind of kids who get drunk at the tailgate and don't show up at the game. They forget about it.
Okay.
So this is, we'll see what happens on Election Day. I think it's also interesting. There was an AP poll yesterday that, and several polls have been grabbing cell phone users, which is supposed to be that vast, unpolled herd of young first-time voters out there. The AP poll, McCain moved up when they grabbed cell phone voters, perhaps because most of them aren't designated as likely voters because they miss them in that loop. But it seems a little counterintuitive as well. So maybe there's something going on here.
I wonder if Gallup's thinking, well, if you really were a serious voter, wouldn't you have a landline by now? I mean, isn't that the sort of thing that says commitment to your country? No, it's a strange phenomenon here. I guess the thing that I'm kind of wondering about is we've heard this, and we're hearing the early voting, we're hearing the absentee ballots and all that kind of stuff. If you don't, if you haven't partaken of those early processes, and this is your first year and you're really excited and you've gone to the Obama rally, you've chanted his name, you've made that silly O sign salute and all that kind of stuff, that, if you haven't done it by November 4th, maybe you're not going to do it. That this is one of those things that sort of is a bit of a fad, and that it builds up a great deal of excitement, and you sign the petition, and you're so excited, and then by November, you're really excited about High School Musical 3 or something like that, or some other item that has come along and has caught your fancy. So just kind of close out on maybe the big story of the year, or maybe not. This interesting development of people finding that you can donate to Obama's website with any name you like, including this is not my real name,
right.
This is not my last name, and the charges will process. As long as you have a credit card number, they don't even ask for that usual 3-digit thing they have on the back of the credit card. Different from McCain's website, different from Amazon.com, everywhere else. Is this a ticking time bomb? Is this something we should keep an eye on, or am I just clutching desperately onto any bit of good news I can find?
I'm sure we'll hear lots about it, and the FEC will take swift and dramatic action. And I'm sure they will do that on November 5th.
Right.
There we go.
Look, I mean, honestly, anyone who believes that someone is going to take in $150 a month, $150 million a month in small dollar online donations, and there isn't a significant amount of fraud going on in there. I mean, look, just the very nature of the way that that's set up is going to encourage that kind of thing. Even if there were safeguards in place. But again, it pains me to say this, but it may cause I don't think the FEC and the FEC laws in general have caught up to this latest development in internet fundraising. We knew there was probably going to be some sort of adjustment here. So, look, I mean, is this going to be the thing that brings down Obama? No, it's not. Should it possibly? But and I do think it demonstrates a tremendous lack of bad faith on their part. I don't know if Barack Obama himself is to blame, but somebody in an organization needs to be held responsible.
Right, Catherine?
Well, I'm just glad that he passed on public financing, because that system was so very broken and corrupt. And
Isn't this so much better?
It's so much better. This is classic Barack Obama. He lectures the rest of us about how public financing is broken, and even though he broke his promise, that makes no difference because he's going to redeem all of us, and then he redeems all of us under fake names with credit card fraud. So
those donations have been redeemed as well. I'm actually looking forward to the very next Barack Obama mass mail that they're going to send out. Snail mail. It'll be kind of like the old Publishers Clearinghouse sweepstakes. You may already be a donor to Barack Obama, whether you know it or not. Check your credit card statements.
One last thing. I look forward to seeing as much coverage of this money as the money spent on Palin's wardrobe.
Oh, yeah, exactly. To bring us full circle. So anyway, this has been another edition of Red Meat on National Review Online. Our guest has been the Weekly Standard's Mary Catherine Ham, an
Thanks for having
absolute
me.
joy. Mark and I will be around for the remainder of the campaign until Barack Obama rounds us up for re-education. So glad you could join us. See you around in a few days.